So Coventry and Middlesbrough are the teams flying high at the top of the Championship. Stoke City not far behind them as well. And bringing up the rear in the Championship's top six are Leicester City, West Bromwich Albion and Millwall. We're going to be talking about four of those teams this evening. So I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host for the evening, Mr. Ollie Mann. Thanks so much for joining us, Ollie. What have you made of the weekend's action and the season so far?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one, hasn't it? I think, obviously, for me, I was starting to look at Coventry as being that sort of step above in terms of the teams at the top of the league. I think, obviously, they've been outstanding so far this season, and they're definitely the story of the season for me. To see Middlesbrough not just keeping up with them, but also flourishing, I think is massive for them, particularly that result on Friday night against Ipswich, because I was a little bit worried about their form. I thought they'd started to dip away a little bit, 3 without a win, huge game against Ipswich on Friday night. I thought that was a standout result. And yeah, other than that, it's a bit of a shock. Not many teams who I expected to be in the top 6 are up there. And that just shows you that the Championship is so unpredictable. It's really hard to see where it goes from here, but I'm sure there are some fans getting very, very excited about their team's chances.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, I wanted to ask you about Coventry City. Weren't able to get Simon on, so we wish him well. But just in terms of Coventry generally, they've been fantastic. An unbeaten start to the season, and they're creating tons of chances at the moment.
Yeah, they've just been absolutely outstanding, haven't they? And I mean, they are top of every metric when you look at this league season so far. They've won the most games, won the most points. They're unbeaten. They look at the last 5 games. They've got 13 points from the last 5 games. They've not conceded a goal during that time. On the XG, they're the standout best team in the division. Everything about them just screams a team that haven't just started well, but they're a team with consistency and who are actually going to be able to keep this going for... they're not going to be unbeaten all season. They're not going to win every game they play, but they have got such a fantastic squad, as well as the way that they're playing at the minute, that you feel as though they can keep this going. They're not top of the league on luck. It's not because other teams haven't turned up. Even if all the expected sort of parachute teams were doing well, they'd do well to be above this Coventry team. So I just think they've been so consistent, so good. And they've got so many standout players who had fantastic starts. I would never have predicted Brandon Thomas-Asante turning into a fantastic number 10. And yet here we are. And that's the power of this Coventry team at the moment. They just seem to be able to keep on rolling. And let's not forget, this isn't flash in the pan. This isn't 10 really good games at the start of the season. Their fantastic run started all the way back when Frank Lampard came in. What was it? Just under 12 months ago, something like that. They have been one of the form teams in the Championship. Even last season, when you were talking about, United, Burnley, Leeds, for the last sort of 3-4 months of the season, Coventry were performing at that level for the majority of that time. So this is almost 12 months of sustained performance, which tells me that they are the real deal and probably the team to beat if you're going to get promoted this year.
It's so interesting, isn't it, Ollie? Because my team Birmingham, we've made 11 signings this summer, and actually, when I look at Coventry, there's part of me thinking, you know what? Maybe we could have actually just make 5 signings and just let the squad cool down a bit, because I like, Coventry. There was times where Coventry fans in the summer would have been saying, we're a little bit short here, or if he gets injured, or if he goes, who's going to come? And what I actually really like about Coventry is that they've got that continuity. They're a tight-knit group. If you look at all the outfield players that have started for them this season, they were there last season. So they've got that understanding. I think that's been a superpower for Coventry this season.
Absolutely. It has powered them forward. And you look at the turnover of so many other teams. I look at my own club, United, and the turnover of squad that we had, and to see the massive drop in levels, whether that comes back up or not is yet to be seen. But you can see how big of an impact that turnover in squad has had. And for Coventry, it's consistency. Manager, squad, tactics, players, all of it has kept the same. And that has allowed them to start the season as strongly as they have. The only key player that they lost would be Ben Sheaf. And I actually expected him to have his departure, I thought, would be quite destabilising. Obviously, he's had a massive leadership role at the club. He's been there for such a long time in terms of the way that he's been playing with them. But they have just kicked on. It's almost as if you would never know that one of these key players was ripped out of their team. And yeah, I think huge credit has to go to Frank Lampard. He's been a bit of a joke, I think, sometimes when you think about managers. I myself have been unbelievably harsh on him. I've judged his old jobs and I've gone, no, he's got nothing. He's got lucky. He got great loans from Chelsea. That's the only reason he did well at Derby. Oh, he didn't even do a good job at Everton, as if he got the Chelsea job. But actually, he's come in here and he's proved everybody wrong, because he's taken this team and he has just created this machine at the moment that looks so hard to stop. And yeah, say it, like I say it quietly, but they, for me, I don't see many teams who are going to be able to topple them, and we play them in a few weeks' time. And I am terrified of the idea of having to go to Coventry right now. It is one of the scariest fixtures in the Football League to have to go away to Coventry, because you just feel like they're going to tear everybody apart. I think they made their important signings sort of back towards January. You know, players like Matt Grimes coming in really gives them that sort of extra dimension to the play through midfield. I like them a lot. I really do.
Yeah, me too. I think as well, I would also bring up the midfield. I mean, I think when Thomas Asante plays, you'd think of it as more of him being in that forward category, like a front four rather than a midfield three. I would consider him part of, with Mason Clark and Sakamoto and Haji Wright, who's been absolutely on fire this season, hasn't he? Haji Wright and Mason Clark. I think that he's not always starting for Coventry, but I really like Torp and Grimes in midfield, because Rhymes the conductor, the one who maybe drops into the defence to allow Van Ewyck and De Silva to get forward, and then you've got Victor Torp, who brings a lot of creativity to that team. So yeah, loads to like about Coventry, and as much as they've done it without Rodoni as well, which shows a little bit of depth, and you know what I mentioned about playing what doing it without Mason Clark, for instance, as well. I do think that they're probably a team that couldn't afford too many injuries.
No.
So they've got to be careful in that area and keeping the squad fit and fresh for the duration. But at the moment, I'm liking what I see.
I agree. And I think you're right. Injuries are the concern. There are a few areas there in the team where you do start to worry what happens. If Matt Grimes picks up a big injury, for example, where do they go from there in terms of somebody coming in, being able to fill that role, not just fill it, but fill it at that level? I think the fact that they've covered for Rodoni, though, gives me a lot of confidence that they will find the answers, even as those difficult questions get asked. Because I would have said, of all the players in the division, Rodoni would have been pretty high on my list for players who were going to be irreplaceable for their club's chances, because he was everything last season. I think he was unlucky not to sort of be considered as the player of the season in the Championship. I think he really was one of those standouts all season. He's one of those who I thought would get a Premier League move, and when he didn't, that to me was one of the big strengths of this Coventry side. So to see him drop out, but Thomas Asante just step into that role and also look like a world beater. I just think what they've got going there isn't just about the individuals. It's almost as if the team is covering for every one of those spots. Too many injuries would be a problem, but the odd one or two, yeah, they seem to have found a way to answer those questions, which I didn't think they'd be able to at the start.
Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by Mr. Nick Hart from the Ashtung Millwall podcast. And you've joined us at the perfect time, Nick, because you can get involved in heaping praise on Frank Lampard, which I know means...
I don't know why someone... I think his dad was associated with West Ham. Hello, good. Hello, Ollie. Hello, Gabe. Good to meet you guys.
Hi.
How you doing? Very good after the weekend, thank you, chaps. Frank Lampard's going well. He's a good manager. I think he gets slated a lot, doesn't he? The whole kind of the Lampard thing.
Sure.
But I think he's a good manager. I think he's got a very good coach in Joe Edwards, another man whose name isn't exactly popular at the Den, but I think there's a combination, there's a coaching combination and there's a managerial combination. Well, the league table doesn't lie at the moment. They're scoring for fun. Put 4 past Millwall the other week in a game where we were chasing, so spaces opened up. They took their chances. I think they're a very good side, and if I can take my my biased Millwall hat off for a moment, it's actually a really nice story, isn't it, for a club that's...
I thought your biased Millwall hat was glued to your head, Nick.
It is glued to my head.
It's nice.
I'll put it back on again then. The romantic in me, were they playing at Northampton's ground at one point, Gabe? They were outcasts.
Yes, they were, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good to see. So no, I mean, as a performance this season, they're going really, really well. But what about Millwall, chaps? That's what I'm here to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you make it to Loftus Road on Saturday?
Yeah, I did.
What did you make of it?
Well, I mean, it was an interesting game. One of the interesting things about football generally is when you're actually live and in the stadium, games feel really fraught and tense, and when you see it on the screen afterwards, it looks a lot more relaxed. I mean, there's an opening save in the side 30 seconds. I can't remember was it Frey, the QPR forward, put a really powerful shot on goal. It was on target, and our goalkeeper, standing goalkeeper in a sense, Max Crocombe, got down well. When you see it on screen, it looks like a decent save, but it didn't look quite as spectacular as it felt in that moment. And I think that's the beauty of live football. When you're there, somehow the impact and the electricity makes things much more heightened. I thought QPR were all over us in the opening phase of the game. We had a chance, Will Smallbone put a really decent shot, which was a brilliant save by their goalkeeper. I think it's called Nardi, and made a top class save, top right hand corner. And we kind of held out a little bit. I thought if we conceded, we might struggle Saturday, but gradually we took hold, and two good goals in different ways. Another beautiful pass from Billy Mitchell to find our man at the moment, Femi Aziz, who put the ball away second time of asking on Saturday, but he's really on fire at the moment. He's a really, really talented player. Really like Femi.
Yeah.
And
how
and
do
then,
you think he can go, Femi Aziz?
well, the Millwall hat is glued to my head here, Gabe. So I've got to say he's got to stay in Bermondsey. But no, he will attract attention. He's good. He's very good. Since he's come back, he was injured for the start of the season, but since he's come back, we've looked a lot more, decisive going forwards. This it's the second time of the week this particular ball has been played. I think they call it the quarterback pass, and the long ball over the top for Aziz to run onto, and 2 goals in a week from the same move. So that's been really big step forwards for us. I think he can go the full distance. I think he's good. I think he's very, very good. He's a name to mark out for the future, because I think he's got the array of talents. Mind you, the last player that I tipped like that, chaps, was Romain Esse, who's disappeared without trace at Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
£15 million later. So I don't know. Maybe the Nick endorsement isn't quite the seal of approval that players might want.
You might get him on loan in January, though, Nick.
Well, I would have him back. I think he's. It's a different story entirely, but he certainly doesn't seem to be in favour at Palace. Sadly, I think he's a good player, Romain. But Femi, no, top talent, and also good to see our other talent who struggled a bit, Mihailo Ivanovic, get a real striker's goal just before half time. There's a lot of added time on Saturday, and he managed to nod in a close cross that found its way through a Rangers defence. They will be very unhappy with that defending, I think. So someone told me Steve Bold is their defensive coach, who's just taken over. I think he won't be happy with what he saw there, because that was it should have been cleared a lot earlier than it was. But anyway, went in the net. So 2-0, a 2-0 lead at half time is an unusual event for Millwall this season. But because it's Millwall, boys, we can't take that 2-0 lead into the last few minutes of a game comfortably. We have to have, we must have a nerve-jangling last 15 minutes with loads of how much added time the referee found was in 8 minutes was found from somewhere. And of course, you've got to sit there for, waiting for the impending disaster. I think QPR went close. They had a really good chance, which, on another day that would have gone in the back of the net. So, good performance, slight sense that we made it harder than it needed to be for ourselves in the end, but 3 points is 3 points. And they're a decent team, QPR, so that was a very, very pleasing show Saturday.
Good to hear. And I think that's one of the key things, isn't it? When you're in those kind of games and you've got yourself ahead, hanging on is such a strength of this team at the moment. But I think that's been typical of a lot of the away games. And, that away record, how good has that been? Obviously, not even just this season, but also carried on into last season since the change of manager. I think it's unbeaten from the 5 games so far. I think you've got the 3rd best away record in the league so far this season. What is it that's sort of standing out about Millwall for you on the road at the moment in terms of being able to grind out these results and being such a consistent, overperforming team away from home at the minute?
Yeah, it's interesting, Ollie, isn't it? I mean, this really, in truth, started under Gary Rowett a couple of seasons ago. We were similar in the sense that away from home, we were very, very difficult side. I think teams find our approach difficult to break down. We don't need to probably go searching for the opening goal in the way that the Den puts a pressure on you to attack and take the ball forwards. You can sit back slightly and hit on the counter, which is a strength. That's been a strength for us for some time, and that really worked out well for us on Saturday. Though we did survive a few scrapes, to be honest. I mean, QPR went close, so they they will feel slightly that they should have done a bit better Saturday. But anyway, why is it so? I don't know. I mean, historically, the Den has always been the fortress, and we were always less reliable away from home. For reasons
I always
that,
feel like a Millwall team, you can't get away with sitting back at the Den because the fans
no.
won't have it. Whereas away from home, you can get away with it a bit more, I think.
Modern football can punish a team that plays an open style game, can't? And many teams now develop to absorb the pressure and hit on the brake. And as you've just said, you can't get away with that kind of defensive mindedness, or whatever you want to call it, whatever term you want to put on it. The Den, Gary Rowett drew a lot of flack because he would grind out games 0-0s, 1-0s at home. With that approach, it wasn't entertaining. People used to take against it in a way, despite the fact that he was overachieving in many ways with us. But that's the nature of the football fan, isn't it? You want to be entertained, and results are fine, but you also want to feel like you've left the ground with a buzz in your head. So sure. It's a tough one. Certainly, we beat West Brom the other week with a really good performance, and that was entertainment combined with a bit of nous on the pitch. So I do think in Alex Neil, we've got a really intelligent manager, and I think week by week it shows itself in the way that he's ground out results with a squad that's been really badly affected by injuries. We've got a couple more on Saturday, unfortunately, but I don't think he's actually had a fully fit squad all season. I don't think. There have been players out from first choice players that just haven't been available to him. So it's a tribute to the management and his assistants that they keep somehow scratching out points from games that maybe the injury list mightn't make you think they should.
A couple more questions then, Nick, before I bring in Johnny Bullock from the Borough Breakdown. Billy Mitchell, you mentioned him earlier. Are we looking at the potential for his best season of his Millwall career? Because it still feels to me from the outside, Nick, like Billy Mitchell, although he's shown lots of ability so far, he's yet to put together that amazing 40 plus starts game season where he's absolutely one of the best midfielders in the Championship, and I know that he's got the ability to do it.
Yeah, I believe he does. You're right, Gabe. I mean, Billy has been Mr. Reliable. I mean, certainly this season he had an injury, so he's literally just come back from injury last couple of games, and it's been a bit of a revelation really since he's returned. I think he's tried to add a bit of aggression to his game, and certainly to look for the forward pass in a way that perhaps previous managements have said keep retain possession, don't look for that kind of ball. He's a couple of times 2 goals in a week from his long field passing, and that's not the Billy that we've seen in the past. He's clearly got the talent. I think under the coaching and the influence of Alex Neil and his staff, I think he's starting to see what he can do. And the only thing I'd say to Billy is he doesn't shoot as much on goal as I might like, but then he's creating goals, so maybe he doesn't need to. I think it's a big season for him. It'll be great to see him come on. He's one of our own, as the song has it. And it's a big season for him. I think he's probably feeling pretty good at the moment. So, staying healthy is the main thing. I think most of our squad, if we can keep the squad reasonably healthy, I think this could be a good season, special season for us.
Well, that's my final question then, Nick. Are you more confident about Millwall's prospects than you were before the start of the season, or about the same?
Yeah, it's such a huge if, and it's such a I was really impressed with Massimo Luongo, who unfortunately left the game injured on Saturday, twisted his knee. I don't always trust what you read on the internet, but it sounds like it's a serious one. And I think he's 32 going on to 33. That could be a really tough injury at that stage of your playing career. So we've just been really unlucky. Josh Coburn, who's been doing well for us up front, has taken a knock apparently. I haven't seen anything on his situation at the moment. So we've been cursed with injuries to key players. What we don't have as ever is a squad that can handle a lot of injuries, because you get pretty much into the kids and the less experienced players. If we can stay fit and healthy for the most part, I think we've got every capability to be in the top 6 at the end of the season. I think the fact that we're sitting in 6th position at the moment after a season where all the injuries I've just described have been such a big part of our campaign, I think that's a real tribute to the manager and his staff and the squad. They've shown real spine in situations. Saturday's game, when QPR really got a head of steam going when they got that late goal, it takes real spine to stand your ground and see out a game in that situation. We showed that. So there's every ingredient in there, apart from Lady Luck. She can be a cruel mistress, boys.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
Well, let's hope she's on your side.
I hope so.
Nick, thanks so much for joining us, and keep up the great work on
You're welcome.
Millwall. Cheers.
Thanks, Gay. Thanks, Ollie. Cheers.
Top man.
So we will be joined by Chris Hall from Albion Analysis, but first we've got Johnny Bullock from the Borough Breakdown. Johnny, lovely to see you as always. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Wow, it's been a fantastic start. The results keep coming for Middlesbrough, and no signs of letting up just yet after a victory over Ipswich on Friday night.
Yeah, great result. Back up to 2.1 points per game. So that is promotion.
You love your points per game, don't you?
I do love PPG. Yeah, so look, we're in a really good position, Gab, to be honest. Really happy with where we are, and we can potentially afford a drop in points now and still hopefully be in a position come the end of the season where maybe playoffs. So yeah, let's see. It was a great result on Friday. We were really happy with how the game came together, and very happy that we got the 3 points as well.
How important do you think that result was on Friday? Because obviously going into the international break, you'd had that, I don't want to call it a blip because that's not really fair, but you'd gone 3 games without a win. We know how football is these days in terms of the reactivity of fans. How important was it to get back to the Riverside, playing one of the big boys in this division, and not just beat them, but beat them deservedly, if we're being honest, in terms of the performance, the way that came out? Do you think that gives so much more confidence into the fan base that after what had happened at Portsmouth, you are still a team that is competing up at the top of this division and is capable of mixing it with the teams like Ipswich?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, beating Ipswich was a fantastic result for us, to be honest. The quality that they have, you always fear that they're going to eventually click under you and they're going to beat you 3 or 4-0 because they do have the players to do it. But yeah, they just let us play really on Friday, to be honest. They give Hackney all the world to impact the game. They're really expansive, and Borough on the counter, probably one of the best teams in the division to do it. Although we created a lot of chances last year from our own possession, I think Borough are just best when they're on that, when they transition from the ball, get the transition, then on that counter, they can be lethal. And we've shown that again, to be honest. And yeah, it was a massive result because it gives us more confidence. And I think the question is, can we sustain it as the season goes on, to be honest? I think creativity has been the focal point, really, I would say, from the fans. Are we going to create enough to get ourselves over the line? And we're on the right side of results at the moment, but there's going to be a time where we might not be. And it's, can we make sure we can still get ourselves over the line in the future?
You've switched formation recently from the wing-back system that you started the season with to a back 4 with Callum Britton and Matt Targett as your fullbacks. That does allow you perhaps an extra body in those attacking areas. What have you made of the formation change and the flexibility, I suppose, that Rob Edwards has shown?
Honestly, it's not too much different, to be honest. Honestly, when you watch it back, you're still playing with back 3 because Target just comes over. And you have Callum Britton playing a lot higher, so you're still wanting to play a very similar shape, incomparable to what the 5 at the back would be.
But then who's playing the extra centre-half, I suppose, would be my question.
Yeah, so so from the back 4, you would just... Obviously, when you watch Millwall play anywhere, they'll play with back 3 defensively, or even on the ball, they'll play with a 3. So what happens when you take that centre back out? You'll have Target that'll come across to play as like a left centre back. Got your centre back in Dale Fry, Alfie Jones, and then you'll go right wing as Callum Britton. You have your double pivot in Hackney and Morris to give you that nice base. And then players can play a little bit wider. So you've got Delano Bergzorg, who's probably occupying that left wing spot on the Friday. And then people who were playing in the 10s are helping us players more of central forwards to help with that as well. So it's still a 3-2-5 shape, really. We did that a lot of last year. We're doing it a little bit this year. It's just, and when you watch Middlesbrough, yes, the shape's the same, but how you get to that position is just being tweaked and changed. So yeah, nothing too different to what we were doing last year, just apart from the ball is getting there a lot quicker than it had done previously and more direct than it had been previously.
I think, you mentioned it there. You talked there about Hackney and Morris. I've talked to them up. Best central midfield partnership in the league for me in terms of what they can do, the ball progression, the way that they obviously just dominate that kind of midfield battle. But obviously, coming into the Ipswich game, Morris missing through his injury, and Alan Brown comes in. How impressed were you with his role in sort of being able to step into Morris's shoes there? Because I still felt as though it was that midfield battle where Borough were probably strongest. You played against an Ipswich midfield that is, played at a high level. They've recruited really well and got some of those standout players. And yet, even without Morris, you're able to dominate that battle. How impressed were you with Alan Brown's role in that kind of performance on Friday night?
I think he was arguably one of the best players on the pitch, to be honest. I know Hackney probably was the best player, but Alan Brown, for me, he gave Hackney the space to play, really. I think everything he touched was calm, collected, nice to dictate the play, but also, as well, he was breaking it up well. And look, Alan Brown's a great centre midfielder. I mean, I think you're in a good spot. I think Dom Shaw, one of our reporters, said you're in a good spot when Alan Brown is like playing second fiddle to Aidan Morris. And I think we really are. Like, you can't ask for anyone better than that to be a third choice. So when you look at that incomparable to last year, Dan Barlaser wasn't really that type of player, and also Lon McCabe wasn't really that type of player.
Well, he's at a different stage as well, isn't he, Lon McCabe?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, what a great player to have in the squad, to be honest. Real talent, really good experience. And yeah, it's nice to have as well, because Morris will do his traveling with the US, so he's gonna be in and out. It's gonna take him time to come back. So it's always nice to have someone who we can rely on in that moment to really get us to play. And look, hey, it's an opportunity for Morris now to stake a claim back in midfield, which is insane given how impressive Morris and Hackney have been together.
Brilliant stuff. Johnny, we're got some other guests coming up, so do need to kind of wrap things up, but I just have one final question for you, which is, are you, I always ask you this, I know, how confident are you feeling about Middlesbrough's prospects?
I thought you were going to say you're drinking the Kool-Aid yet, to be honest. I still feel the same. I'm quietly optimistic.
You're always quietly optimistic. No,
yeah, I don't put my opinion out there now, Gab.
Are you having a sip of Kool-Aid rather than glugging the whole thing?
No, the pint glass is on my table, but I'm not taking a sip yet. I think, look, I need to see probably late November. Come back to me late November, Gab, and I'll be like, yeah, we're going Sizzler, we're doing the lot, winning everything, winning the League Cup, FA Cup, and the Championship as well.
We'll mark it in the diary, Gab. I'll put a mark on. Come back to Johnny.
The Kool-Aid podcast.
You'll both message me separately after this and be like, come on, just please say it once, have we? It's fine. But all good. Honestly, guys, thank you so much for having me on. Lovely to see you both as always.
Great to see you, Johnny. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Johnny.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Legend. Delighted to be joined now by Mr. Chris Hall from Albion Analysis. Drinking a bit of Kool-Aid yourself, I suppose, Chris, off the back of that victory over Preston North End.
Never, Gab. Never get quite so premature as that. Because if there's one thing that as an Albion fan, it's that #Albion that is always around the corner to bring you thoroughly back down to earth. And given that we for the second midweek in a row, we've got a lovely week where we've got to go on the road twice in 4 days. Thank you very much, EFL. The idea that we finished this week with 9 points from 3 games doesn't feel very realistic, because not to whinge about the scheduling, but it is a little bit ridiculous, and all the stats will show you that when you have back-to-back aways, the vast majority of teams lose the second one. especially when it's away at Ipswich.
Yeah, when it's going to be away at Ipswich, I think it might be more than just the schedule that's the issue.
Yeah, at 12:30 when we've played on the Wednesday. Again, cheers, EFL.
Absolutely. What have you made of your performances so far this season, Chris?
Mixed. I say mixed. I don't think they've fluctuated dramatically. I just think fundamentally we've been quite good at the back, and we've lacked a bit of a creative spark at the top end of the field, which is not really a massive shock when we sold or let 26 assists go over the summer. You know, I mean, everyone makes a big thing about Tom Fellows, but you can chuck into the mix Darnell Furlong, John Swift, Grady Diangana. These guys all chipped in last season with the creative element of things, and we let all of them go for some for the right reasons. To be fair, I think all of them for the right reasons, but you'll still have people question the decision of Tom Fellows that late in the window for that much money, whether we were a little bit premature letting him go. But I think we've been kind of waiting for a couple of things, really. We've been waiting for other players to step up. Now, Mikey Johnston has largely done that this season, but he has kind of been on his own a little bit, because people talk about Isaac Price, but Isaac Price is there really as a goal scorer. You look at where all these numbers are, their shots on target, XG, expected goals on target. That's where Isaac Price is racking up amazing numbers. He's actually our biggest goal threat, but he's not really playing in a creative role. But we've kind of been waiting for Toby Collier to be able to get himself in there as a central midfielder, because Moat and Malumbi, it's tried and tested, but is it really, particularly Malumbi, is it that creative? We've been waiting for Samuel Illing Jr. to really get himself up to speed and be able to play game after game. Looks like he's getting there. And then on Saturday on the bench, you've got Carlin Grant and Daryl DK, and you've got Tamabani coming through 45 minutes for the in the whatever the pizza trophy malarkey thing is nowadays. Coming through 45.
That's why they're going to rebrand it.
Yeah, I don't. Is it paint? Is it pizza? We don't know anymore. It used to be vans. I don't know. I just don't. I'm confused. My world is askew, Gab. If it's not a brand from the 90s, I just don't know it. But no, I mean, genuinely,
the Littlewood trophy.
Yes, I can go back to LDV vans, mate. That's how old I am. But there you go. But no, I mean, I think we've lacked in forward areas, but and part of that has been a tactical thing.
Yeah,
but the other part of it has been a personnel thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I think earlier in the season there was definitely a feeling that you were struggling to break teams down because you had Moat and Malumbi, and Moat's a better technical footballer than sometimes given credit for, but maybe missing something. And then you had Aune Hegabo, which I think was working quite well for you away from home, but maybe Madger's more of a goal scorer. Since you've brought in Toby Collier and Josh Madger, has that brought in elements of the improvements that you're looking for?
I mean, it's hard to say, Gab, because the sample size is so small. Madger's that was only Madger's second start. He started away at Norwich, obviously scored the goal, sure. and then started against Preston. To be honest, I think he was one of the less inspiring players against Preston. But having said that, he still kind of linked the play really, really well. And there was just little moments where you see what he can do. And the other thing is, with a player like Madger who likes to come deep to get the ball, when you've got a 10 like Price who likes to get beyond and into the box, it does work really, really well. I was really impressed with Collier, like really impressed. I think what you see, and this is nothing against Jason Malumbi. You said about Alex Moat. I think he's massively underrated. In the last 18 months, if Alex Moat hasn't started, we've won once when Alex Moat hasn't started. We generally lose when Alex Moat doesn't start. He is possibly the single most important player in our squad in terms of needing him to start. The problem is he's pushing 31 and he's not, and he's got a bit of a history of a few sort of niggling injuries behind him. I question whether he's going to be able to play 3 games this week, for example. I think that's a problem, and we need other options in there. And Toby Collier, the way he does things first time, like he sees, you can see he's a Premier League footballer. He sees the pictures as the ball's coming to him, and as passable as people like Malumbi and Diakite are at this level, they're not. They're there because of generally their work rate, their endeavour, the way they put themselves about. The quality levels aren't the same, and we need somebody with that quality level to be able to step in and support Mo, ideally alongside him. But when we have a week like this, maybe to play instead of him. The only problem is Toby Collier came off after an hour injured, so we'll have to see whether or not he can play away at Watford. But yeah, I think he's a massive plus, and something we needed, because I like Malumbi, I like Diakite. I mean, I haven't seen much of Bielik, but it's supposedly he can play in there. But they all lack something in terms of technical ability that Collier really does bring.
Yeah, it's well, hopefully he can show that potential. Isaac Price is somebody who's come in for a lot of praise, Chris, certainly from the second half of last season. How would you describe his form in the first 3 months of this one?
I mean, very good. I think that, like I say, I think people almost misunderstand Isaac Price. So you've got Albion fans sort of, when we're talking about the problem of, technical players in that sort of 6 and 8 role, a lot of Albion fans like to chuck around Isaac Price's name, and I do agree he could play that role. But the problem is, unless Daryl Dike gets to a point where he can start games, the other 2 centre forwards we've got are guys who actually like to drop in a little bit and link the play. They're not like nines who like to be a real 6-yard box player like DK is. And what Price gives you is that guy who goes beyond. I think at the moment, with the 2 centre forwards that we have available, he is so valuable in getting into the box, being the one who gets shots away. And what's interesting, Gav, is that you look at his XG this season, and then you look at his expected goals on target. The quality of his shooting has doubled his XG to his expected goals on target. His expected goals has him at 3 goals. He scored 4. His expected goals on target has him actually scoring just north of 5. So his shooting is unbelievable. And you look at the finish that he put in against Preston. He made it look effortless. There was one that that was on the highlights where he took a snapshot really early that Everson had to tip over, which, again, it's just taking a low value chance and making it high value. And I don't want to see him move deeper. I honestly think that it's not out the question that he could be sniffing in and around the top scorers in this division come the end of the season. He's not going to win it, because it looks like Haji Wright's won it already. But I think I feel like he could be in that top 10 bracket, and that would be really impressive for a sort of attacking 10.
Certainly would be. It's great that he can do that, chip in with goals and also bring that creative element. Are we still seeing, Chris, that tendency for fullbacks to come inside, like Callum Styles, for instance? He's obviously a central midfielder by trade. Is it still that Styles drifts into midfield and Mikey Johnston kind of hugs the touchline?
No, a bit less so. I know, because I know. Oddly, talking after the Preston game, I know you came to the Preston game last season, and you saw a lot of that from Furlong and Styles. And no, I'd say less so. I mean, also because we've sort of flitted between Styles and Charlie Taylor in the last couple of games as well. And Charlie Taylor is a very naturalised left back. George Campbell's obviously been playing right back since Darnell Furlong left, and he's a little bit of a fish out of water out there. He's a solid defender, but he's not going to be able to do the things that Darnell Furlong was able to do, drive forward and inside a little bit and play those balls in behind the sort of centre half and the fullback. And I think we're dealing a little bit with what we've got at fullback. I think when Mikey drives inside, I think it creates space for Styles to provide the width. And I think the interesting one at right back is how long George Campbell plays, to be honest with you, because we've obviously got Alfie Gilchrist, who we haven't seen, I mean, really at all. I think he played a few minutes late doors at Norwich, and it's odd because we bought him for about 1.2 million pretty much straight after selling Furlong, and it looked like this is your direct replacement. And we haven't really given the guy a sniff, where we've rotated pretty much every other position in the squad. And Gilchrist hasn't had a sniff. I know that Mason has talked about it a little bit and said that he didn't really come to them fully up to speed from Chelsea, and I appreciate that. But it's been quite a few weeks now. I mean, obviously it's been well over a month, nearly 2. You'd think he was up to speed now. So it'll be interesting to see how long we persevere with Campbell as the right back.
Mm.
Yeah, an interesting one, because obviously we had Alfie Gilchrist last season, and I was really impressed by him, to be honest, for the first half of the season. But he is a defender first. He very much does that role of, I am going to be backwards thinking, defending. I'm not overlapping my man. I'm not trying to get forward. And I think it'd be really interesting to see how that role kind of plays into how he does develop. He fell out of favour with us, so he's not played much football at all probably since January. So I wonder if it is taking that little bit longer to get him up to speed. But I wish him really well, because I really liked him at Bramley, and he was one of my favourites, I think, last season in terms of the way that he played the game. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing him actually get into this team, and hopefully he gives you that more natural option down the right, albeit a very defence-first option.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we're not really losing anything there because Campbell doesn't go on the overlap. It was quite funny. Funny in a sort of gallows humour kind of a way, because we were getting absolutely. We've had a couple of bad aways at Borough and at Millwall, but seeing Jed on that right wing, sort of, because Jed obviously nowadays doesn't want to go past people, standing there with his foot on the ball, waiting for this sort of marauding right back run that never came from George Campbell. And Jed, like little boy lost in a shopping centre, stood there going, "Where's me right back? Where's me overlap?" And so I don't think we don't lose anything in that regard, because George Campbell's not doing those things. I'm not trying to get on at George Campbell. It's just he just at times looks a bit like a square peg in a round hole, and as much as Alfie Gilchrist isn't going to give us loads more in terms of that attacking intent, I'd just like to see a round peg in a round hole, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Chris, I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I know you're on dad duties in a few minutes. Couple more questions, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
Ryan Mason, are you quietly encouraged by what you're seeing from him so far?
Yeah, I think. Look, I think the biggest thing with Ryan Mason is that he's learning and he's evolving. I think the most worrying thing, if you get a young coach, is when they can't respond to setbacks, and they just keep going back to the well with the same ideas, like, this is all I know, I don't know what else to do. That's not Ryan Mason at all. And I think he's evolving in a lot of regards. I think he's evolving in his relationship with the press, which I think was really important, because I don't think he was doing himself any favours early doors as Albion manager, with the way he was conducting himself in the press. Very closed off, very much not giving the fans any information, and that it's not a good way to be. And I don't know whether somebody's had a little word or what, but he's really learning in that regard. I think he's learning about his side, that at Albion there's an expectation that you try and play at least a bit expansively and you try to score goals. And I think that there was a definite shift in the way we tried to play against Preston. I think he knew this was a game we had to go out and try and win from the off, and that the results haven't really been good enough at home, and that you are going to get judged as an Albion manager by your home form. And I think, again, he's learned a little bit. I think he's making mistakes, but, well, look, if we didn't want him to make mistakes, we shouldn't have hired a rookie manager. But I'm massively encouraged by how prepared to learn and how prepared to accept when he's done something wrong he is. Is this learning curve potentially going to cost us maybe a playoff place this year? I don't know, because if ever there was a league this year, a championship division, a championship season that was going to give you a little bit of rope, I think it's this season
I
because it's
agree.
so even. I think
isn't it crazy? Because like you look at the teams up there, Middlesbrough, didn't expect them to be as good as they were. Stoke, they've been perennial bottom half dwellers. Leicester were possibly the least fancied of the 3 relegated clubs. Even Millwall are in the top 6 without. On a bottom 8 budget kind of thing. And even Bristol City and Preston and Charlton and Hull, Queen's Park Rangers, it's mad how almost all the teams in the top half are teams that you're almost expecting to be in the bottom half. And it's, so
look at it this way. Look at it this way, Gab. If you go from Leicester in 4th down to your own mighty Birmingham City in 17th, there is just 5 points separating those teams from 4th to 17th, which means theoretically speaking, it will never happen like this. But theoretically speaking, they could literally swap places this week. So I mean, that's how crazily tight it is in there.
Absolutely.
Hello, wait a minute. We're only 11 points off 4th here. We're going up, boys.
The cycle charge is coming from the mighty blade.
It's not that even, Ollie. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. I'll let you get off and go on to your family duties now. So thanks so much for making the time, and I'll see you next week.
Yes, absolutely, mate. Looking forward to it, and thank you again for your time.
Legend. Cheers, Chris.
See you later.
So Ollie, I did want to have our while we're on the subject of Sheffield United, I did want to have our general week sort of Blades catch up, if you like.
Sheffield United therapy, as I like to call it.
Exactly. But you're looking forward to it slightly this week after that that victory over Watford.
Yeah, certainly, and it was actually a much improved performance from United this week because the big thing for me under Wilder has been it's been a bit of continuation. We've been better, don't get me wrong, and we've certainly seen a lot more solidity in terms of what we're expecting from the team. We've been losing tight games, and that felt at least a little bit better from what we'd seen before. But this weekend against Watford, it really felt like the United we saw last season. And when I say that, I don't mean the team that got 92 points and were brilliant and won every week. What I mean is, towards the end of last season, United were a team who eked out tight games. We got ourselves in front, we defended for our lives, we rode our luck a little bit, and we got through. And we were very much that team again at the weekend. And I think, we were unlucky ourselves not to score more. I do think on the balance of play, we deserve to win this game of football. And I've not been able to say that for a very long time. So that feels quite nice. But yeah, certainly things feel like they're looking up a little bit. This was a team who had more to offer, had more fight about them, had a bit of belief that they were going to win this game of football. And that is a huge step forward that you just love to see.
Certainly is. Now, I've got a really big question for you, Ollie, which is Djibril Soumaré, because there were lots of Sheffield United fans calling for Soumaré to start, certainly under Ruben Sellers, and maybe even at the beginning of Wilder's tenure. And for a while, he didn't get that look in that he was hoping for. How close is Djibril Soumaré, on very early evidence, on small sample size, to being something close to a Vinny Sousa replacement? And I know that's a huge act. Can he do similar things to Sousa?
No, if we're being honest, no, we can't. And I think, it's really telling that, United have won 2 games this season. Djibril Soumaré has started 3 games. The only games we've won have been games he started. He obviously brings more balance to that midfield. He obviously does some of that dirty work that the other midfielders have not been able to do in terms of the way that he screens the defence a little bit more, the way that he holds his man a little bit more. For me, the big risk with Soumaré is that there's 2 areas where he really stands out as being really difficult and as if he's struggling in the centre of that midfield. The first is positionally. So often you see him almost lost in midfield and he's almost looking around for someone to say to him, there, be there. And I think that comes with being a young player coming into a new country, into a new team, a new style of play. But he does look a little bit lost at times in midfield. When he's on it, he's fantastic. He had a period against Watford at the weekend where he won one big tackle and that almost got his hackles up. He won this massive tackle. He charged into another one. He drove us forward, found a forwards-facing pass. So with confidence and belief in him, there's a player there. But for me, he's got to tighten up on his defensive positioning, on knowing exactly where he needs to be. The second bit that concerned me was there was a reluctance to give him the ball. there were 2, 3, 4 occasions in the first half in particular where he showed for the ball. He dropped deep, he'd found a pocket of space, and he said, right, yes, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And instead we kicked it long. Or instead we took another touch and sort of went, we'll pass it down the line, we'll find another option. And I think that speaks volumes to me about the fact that his teammates aren't quite trusting him with the ball to feet. They don't want to give it him back to goal with a little bit of pressure on him because they don't really think he's going to be able to find that option. So certainly I think he's the best of the bunch we've seen starting in central midfield so far. I'll be really interested in what the role of Jairo Riedewald's going to be for the rest of the, between now and January. But certainly all of the noises I'm hearing from Bramall Lane at the moment are that we are going to go out and buy the midfielder we want him to play that role. And so I think Soumaré might have the shirt until January, but I'd be very shocked if he had it too much longer than that. Unless he does stand up.
Hopefully a decent stopgap at least. It reminds me, when you talk about nobody passing to him, reminds me of, I had a flashback then of when I was playing football on the playground and it's like everyone else was better than me and I never got past the ball. So I ended up playing,
I'm ready, I'm open. You're all right.
Oh, painful times. So where was I? Good that you've got a couple of wins under the board under Chris Wilder. Hopefully that can, you could see the relief on his face as well, because I think there was a sort of I think Chris Wilder would only be human to have had nightmares about what if, after everything I've done with Sheffield United, after all the history that we have together, if it ended that way. And I think that almost haunted him to a certain extent. I could imagine, you know, it'd have to not be human for that not to be the case. So I could just see the fight. I think Sheffield United posted the clip of the final whistle and I could just see the outpouring of relief.
Yeah, you could see it from him, but you could see it from everybody, you know. It sounds ridiculous to say this, and obviously there's the summer and there's so many other things. But as a team who were expecting to be at the top of the division, we've not won a game at Bramall Lane since I think it was the 6th of May when we beat Bristol City in the playoffs. That's the last time we won a competitive game of football at Bramall Lane. We didn't play any friendlies there. It's almost 6 months. And it just feels like one of those where you had to get this monkey off your back. We needed to get that win. And to be honest, you know, you talk about the relief. The relief comes when you see the chance that Kevin misses on the very last kick of the game.
Oh, God.
So it's the 96th minute, a long throw in the box, and it falls to their centre half, unmarked, to just smash it in the back of the net. And in putting that wide, almost the entire ground went, because it just felt so like that luck hasn't gone for us this season, you know, with Burrows missing the pen at Hull, with Sidney Peck's equaliser being disallowed against Southampton. All of those big moments have gone the other way. So to have this one go our way, to have it happen in the 96th minute felt huge. And there was just a huge sigh of relief go around the ground at the time. I'm hoping that's the sign. That's the sign we're going to kick on. We're going to go forwards. We're going to be a better team from here. The performance was improved. The luck was improved. That should be the difference. That should be the benchmark now. And that should be what sees us kick on away from relegation trouble, hopefully. I'm not setting my sights any higher than that, but let's make sure we don't get relegated and then look again.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, you know. Let's not get relegated.
It's a good target.
Yeah, absolutely. So Middlesbrough have got a good target and so have Sheffield United. Awful. I should really be a dad before I do those jokes.
Yeah, you really should.
I know, yeah. Right, where was I? I did want to ask you about, although it's a wing-back system, at least the BBC have got it down as that as a lineup. I do wonder whether there's a little bit of a sense of having recovery strength on either side, because Ben Mee at his age and stage of his career is obviously a little bit on the older side, so he needs the protection of a more conservative wing back like Sam McCallum, who's a fullback by trade, whereas Japhet Tanganga, who's very quick and strong, maybe doesn't need that, and so you can get away with having Chiro Ogbene as right wing back, and he can be very high up the pitch. So although it's a 3-4-2-1, at least I think that's correct, I do wonder actually if it can also manifest itself sometimes as kind of like a 4-2-3-1, where you've got Barry who can move over to the left. He's played that role previously in his career. O'Hare can play in the 10, Ogbene can play on the right, and Pekka and Soumaré in the middle. I'm wondering if we see that flexibility sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the first, it's a system that is just so fluid in terms of how we're playing it at the moment. And, when Johnny was talking about Middlesbrough earlier, it almost felt a little bit familiar to me because this is very much a system that, out of possession does look like a 4. Tanganga shifts right, McGuinness and me shift into the centre, McCallum sits in on the left, and they almost sit as a 4 when the opposition's got the ball. It's only when we start to attack that you see it transition into that 3 and sort of Ogbeni and McCallum spread wide, and they sit as a back 3 with Tanganga, McGuinness, me, sort of really making sure that we're not going to get hurt or get hit in the transitions. McCallum at the weekend was really adventurous in terms of going forward, particularly the first sort of 20 minutes. I thought he was probably the standout performer on the day, probably our man of the match. I think he won it both in the club's and official and unofficial votes. Sam McCallum got the man of the match because it was a really impressive performance from him. But yeah, I think it's one of those where we do seem to shift in and out of possession. And so as soon as we get the ball, McCallum's going. He wants to be an option down the left. He wants to be backing up Barre. He wants to be giving us something else trying to get down the wing. And as soon as we lose the ball, everybody get back, get into your shape, hold your 4, and just make sure there's nothing easy for the opposition. So, yeah, it's quite fluid. It's interesting to see. It's still early days because obviously we've got a lot to do in terms of learning it, making sure that we've got it locked down. I still think there's a chance that Burrows, obviously long-term, will come back into this team. He needed a rest, but I wouldn't be shocked, for example, to see him tomorrow night, bearing in mind that McCallum's not played much football and...
Right.
He needs to get minutes in his legs. 3 games in a week is a huge ask. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what that team looks like tomorrow night.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting to see that you produced that performance without Gus Harmer. So I'm wondering how you think he would fit in when available.
He'll fit in instead of Louis Barry. And it's a really easy answer because I don't want to be personal to the lad. He's trying his best, but Louis Barry just looks a million miles away from the level. He looks so poor at the moment. Ball to feet, he's not strong enough to hold it. He's not fast enough to make his run behind the fullback. Every time the ball goes near him, we were losing it. And so for the majority of the game, and he's just got to get up to speed. I don't think he's fully fit, and I think there's a lot of learning to do there. But for me, Louis Barry, we were carrying a man for so much of that game at the weekend. And it was notable that obviously the goal and some of United's creativity comes once he's gone off and Brooks has come on that side. Brooks then creates the goal through his intensity, through wanting to get onto the rebound in the box. And so, yeah, I think there's a natural spot for Gus Harmer to come in instead of Barry on that sort of inner left attacking position. Yeah. But it sounds as though he's going to be out for a while. We're definitely not seeing him this week. If I'm honest, I'd be shocked if we see him this international break. I think it'll be Hillsborough at the earliest that he comes back into the team. And so either Andre Brooks is going to have an opportunity to lock down that position or Louis Barry's going to have the chance to play himself into form. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But there's definitely a place for Harmer if he wants it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do wonder whether timing hasn't been great for Louis Barry because he's shown phenomenal ability in the lower divisions with Stockport County. But in his first season, he was amazing in the first half of the campaign, and this was in League Two, admittedly. But Stockport won 12 in a row, and Louis Barry was essential to that. And then he got injured and missed the rest of that campaign other than last few games. And then the following season, again, he started the season on fire and scored 15 goals in the first half of the campaign in League One. But then Stockport recalled him and sent him to Hull. And actually, I wonder if building up the endurance of a full season would have been in a lower division would have been good for Louis Barry. And he hasn't actually done that, even though if he's been the best player in either division when he has been fit. So
absolutely. For me, it's his physicality that really lets him down at the moment. It's one of those where the ball comes to him and he's just knocked off it so easily. It's almost as if he doesn't know how to play the defenders. And I really want to see him get up to speed and get fitness. But the problem that we had is earlier in the season under Ruben Sayers, he was offering a lot more. He looked a much better player than he does right now. I think his confidence has been hit and he needs a bit of time to play himself into form and to really sort of get that belief in himself back. But even when he was at his best, the difficulty that he's had in the Championship at this level against this standard of defender is that, for want of a better phrase, it's a one-trick pony to an extent. In that what he wants to do is he's playing on the left wing. He wants to get the ball on the left wing. He wants to show his man down the line. His man's going to commit down the line. He's going to do him on the inside. He's going to smack it in the top corner. Yeah. He wants to do that as a repeatable pattern every time. And so what the defenders have done that we've seen so far this season is gone, why would I follow you down the line? You're not going to go down there and kick it with your left foot. There's no chance. So I'm just going to stand here and you're not going to do me on the inside. And that has really hurt him. So I think he needs to find another sort of avenue to his attacking. Maybe it's switching sides. Maybe he tries it down the right. He sort of goes on his natural side just to show that he's got something different about his game. So there's a lot of potential for him. I'm not writing him off. I'm not saying that it's never going to work for him. But at the moment, he's not ideally suited to a Championship relegation struggle. And he probably will really struggle to find his best in this current United team, albeit that obviously with Harmer injured, there's a huge opportunity for him to try and lock down that sort of front left role.
Absolutely. Well, there's also an opportunity for Leicester City to lock down a top 6 spot in the Championship. So I'm delighted to be joined by, I know, smooth as hell.
That is a lovely transition. I love that, Jam.
Love it.
I've ruined it now, but it was great.
I'm delighted to be joined by Locks from Blue Tinted Glasses podcast on Leicester City. Good evening, Locks. Thanks so much for joining us. What do you make of Leicester's start to the season?
Yeah, I would say it's been hit and miss so far. I think over the last few weeks, it's kind of been a little bit frustrating. We've got 5 draws in 6 games, which it has become a little bit of a habit that we've gotten into drawing games, which has been super frustrating. But to be honest, I am happy. The fan base, as always with Leicester City, the fan base is divided. There's already some questioning Martí Cifuentes, but the majority of the ones that who are criticising Cifuentes, I think, we're actually expecting Leicester to be mid-table. But at this point, all the turmoil off the pitch, a lot of fans saying, "Oh, we're gonna be a mid-table team this season. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to get promoted," being doom and gloom. And now that we're 4th, they're turning on the manager already, which doesn't make much sense to me. I'm still fairly happy. I think that I've seen enough from the team and from what Martí Cifuentes is trying to do on and off the pitch to get behind him. And I'm kind of sick of saying, get the manager sacked. I'm sick of seeing managers come and go now at this point. We've been through quite a few over the last 3 years or so, and I'm a little bit frustrated with that. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm still happy.
So I have to learn with experience on Leicester, because last season I saw Burnley look wholly unconvincing and continue to win games 1-0 on the basis of good organisation and individual quality. And because they were bottom half on XG and all these creative metrics, I was saying at the time, this isn't sustainable. Burnley are going to drop off. They might not even finish in the top 6. And actually, I was wrong about that, because that combination of being a well-organised team that doesn't lose games and doesn't concede goals, and having the star quality at the top end of the pitch to win games, that's actually proven a useful combination. So do you think that actually that having somebody like Yeremy Monga who can create something out of nothing, and having Abdul Fattah who can score these screamers, does actually count for something, even if you're not creating chances quite as organically as you'd like?
It's interesting what you said about Burnley. I think that rule applies for a lot of teams, that it's not sustainable unless you have a championship super team. That might be pushing it a little bit too far, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? We've got some players who are too good for this league. I mean, Abdul Fattah is a Premier League player. It's no question he will be in the Premier League next season with or without us. And even Harry Winks, he's not really a fan favourite anymore, but still at this level, he's brilliant. So I think yes, it is a massive concern for some fans, right? I think we're like way bottom half a lot of the underlying data, but we have players that can, like you say, create something out of nothing. I mean, even the new signing, well, I'll mention 2. Jordan James on loan. I don't know if you saw his goal the other night against Swansea a couple of weeks ago. Unbelievable. And Aaron Ramsey on Saturday night, who with a scorpion kick. It was a good cross in from Fattah, but he did a scorpion kick to get it in the back of the net. We've got players that just have those moments of quality, and that they're not going to go away. They're still here. They're, yes, we might lose one or two in January potentially, but we're still going to have a team that are able to create these goals or finish off half chances, if you like. So I think, to be honest with you, I think the main problem at Leicester at the moment is the striker situation. We lost Jamie Vardy in the summer, and we've got Jordan Ayew and Patson Daka as our main two strikers
as well.
And Carranza, who's kind of just an unknown still. It was his first start on Saturday, and I mean he wasn't bad, but he didn't really do anything of note. Jordan Ayew, I think, should be starting for Leicester. I think his performances are there. I think he brings a lot to the team. He's just not a goal scorer. He's not a number 9. I mean, Cifuentes himself called Ayew a 9.5 in the summer, and that's basically what he is. And that frustrates fans, and then fans get on his back, Jordan Ayew, because he's old and he's slow and he doesn't score loads of goals, but he's really important to the team. Daka is Daka. Daka's just he's the worst in my time of being a Leicester fan. He's the worst striker we've ever had. He's terrible. But I suppose when he's, he off the ball work is good. But so yes, you see what I'm saying? There's no goal scorer. There is no goal scorer, and I think that is why maybe we're not second. I don't think we'd be quite as close. I don't think we'd be top with how good Coventry have been, but. What we're talking about. We're talking about where would we be if we had a goal scorer, second instead of fourth. I still have faith, and in this team under Cifuentes, and yes, the progress hasn't been as big as we would have liked. I still think there are minor improvements every single game, and if we can get a goal scorer, if we can get one of our strikers, one of our 3 scoring, I think we'll have no problems finishing, in the top. Well, in the top 6, definitely, maybe even the top 2, until a points deduction comes. Then who knows? Who knows what happens then? It's like everything I say now about Leicester prediction-wise, you have to caveat it with points deduction, right? Like I can predict. I think Leicester will finish second personally, but I don't know what the deduction's going to be. Right? When there's a deduction, who knows where we're going to be? Who knows?
Yeah. Is there any suggestion of movement on that in terms? Because it's ridiculous, isn't it? That it's 20th of October. We've been talking about this since May. How are we still sat here? Has there been any movement from your side that you're hearing, or any progress?
Yeah. No, there was something actually. All we got, I think it was from the Athletic or the Telegraph. All we got was Leicester's hearing will begin in the next few weeks. That's all we got, and this was like 2 weeks ago. So there's nothing other than that. We don't know as fans. Maybe the club have an idea, but we as fans don't know whether we're gonna get hit heavily, whether we're gonna maybe get maybe a minor deduction. We don't know if we might have found a loophole like we did, a year ago. We just don't know. We don't know what the situation is. So, and that's not helpful to anybody, even the EFL, right? I'll include the EFL into that because they've got a league table that isn't the true league table, right? Depending on what happens with Leicester. So, I also don't know how much of the delay is down to Leicester. Leicester might be kicking it down the road as have done previously. But I suppose you only do that if you feel like you have a chance of, that benefiting you. So, yeah, we'll see what happens on it. The talk, from reputable journalists was that the club were thinking about 9 points. If we get a 9 deduction, it's gonna sink us for now. But I still think that's recoverable. Yeah. But I still think 9 point deduction is recoverable. Yes, we'll be, bottom half as it stands, but I think it's recoverable to finish in the playoffs, for sure. I think regardless, we'll finish top 6, personally. I think we've just got too much about us.
Interesting. I suppose one of the cases for that would be the fact that you've got Caleb Okoli on the bench, and I think you spoke when I spoke to you for our summer deep dive locks. You mentioned him as somebody who's one of the highest valued, biggest assets at the club. Are you surprised, given Wout Fash's struggles in particular in the Premier League last season, and maybe Yannick Vestergaard as well, that it's still those two starting in central defence rather than Okoli?
Well, Vestergaard and Fass, every single Leicester fan, I think, probably 99% of Leicester fans in the summer would have said, we don't want them starting, we can't have them. It's time to move on. We've got Caleb Okoli, we've got Ben Nelson as well, who's a young, exciting talent who was on loan at Oxford last year, who had a good season, but he missed a bit because of injury. But the problem we have is when Fas and Vestergaard play, they just outperform everybody else. Like, that is the problem we have. I mean, Yannick Vestergaard on the ball in with the style of football that we want to play is just exceptional at championship level. Like, it's just the passing on the bloke is just ridiculous for a centre back. Funny fact, Vestergaard is our second top goal scorer. He's scored more than any of our strikers, which is quite funny. He's got 2 goals, Vestergaard has. So I think Okoli we deemed as our biggest asset, one of our biggest assets. That price tag, whatever it was, that valuation has got to have been reduced now after, because the problem with him and Nelson, they're the two that a lot of us pictured being the future of Leicester's defence. The problem is Ben Nelson played 1 game in the Cup against Huddersfield, had an absolute stink, one of the worst centre-back performances I've seen in years, and he's not been back in the team since, which I think Marti Cifuentes probably should have handled that a little bit better. He should have been given another chance by now. This was like in early September that this happened, maybe even August. And Caleb Okoli, in the last game he played, which was a few weeks ago now, he was really disappointing. He was getting thrown off the ball easily. His passing, just wasn't up to scratch. So Fas and Vestergaard have just found themselves as the preferred choice by Cifuentes. And, us as fans, we don't want them to be at the in the back line for Leicester, but we understand why they are, because they're just the best 2 at the moment. And so but
it's a dilemma,
Fas has still got 2 years. Fas has still got 2 years on his deal.
It's a dilemma, though, isn't it? Because that if you did get to the Premier League, Fas and Vestergaard aren't good enough for that level, whereas somebody like Okoli might be with a certain amount of time. So that would be the other argument. But I totally get it on current form. Well, Locks, I think that just about wraps it up. You've obviously very confident that Leicester are going to be somewhere in the top 6 and hopefully top 2 without points deduction. So, we wish you well.
Without a question for me, top 6, no matter what happens, we will be top 6.
You'll definitely be
100%.
Okay, all right, we'll hold you to that. Great stuff. Locks, thanks so much for talking to us. Keep up the great work on Blue Tinted Glasses. Thanks to my lovely co-host, Ollie Mann from Sheffield United Way. And we'll see you again for another Championship podcast here on EFL Debate next week.